Greetings, everyone. I just wanted to give you the quick view. We're at the service center in a place called Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And I just finished an interview. I just wanted to give you the view of where we're at. A lot of Model 3s are arriving. I'm doing my usual routine here of we're on the road once again, and we'll go back on. Camera acting up on me here. I think I may be... Greetings, Mr. Sweden. Welcome back. This is Greg. Today's coverage focuses on the fact that my lighting is bad, I agree, but what I'm trying to do is show you guys an interview that I just did that was slightly illegal with some guys that work for Tesla on doing repair work. So over my shoulder, you'll notice that there are a couple of guys working out of a van. And what we're covering today is, number one, there are 3 types of Tesla repair vehicles, levels 1, 2, and 3. And soon they're going to have Model S repair vehicles as well. So I just did an interview with the gentleman you see behind me about how this works and why. We're going to go through that as the first part of our discussion. And then the second part, which is really what I wanted to focus on, is that Elon Musk made a comment about short-term, the fact that he didn't want to answer questions about short-term elements of profitability, and that cost $2 billion in market value or market cap for the stock. So I had to admit that my plan was to focus exclusively on what's going on with Elon and his comments after earnings and tanking the stock in the conversation period afterwards, even though the stock had been up during the on the basic numbers that were presented. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, welcome back. Welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. Just a reminder, our next show is actually coming up on Sunday, officially at 7 a.m. Eastern. This is kind of bonus coverage because earnings just happened and there's a whole bunch of things happening. Wanted to get a couple extra shows in so you guys could hear about what was going on. Please note that I do know a little bit about camera work, and what my goal is right now is I've positioned my vehicle so that I can keep the service vehicles right behind me. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning here in the DC area, and my agenda was you guys get to see the service people over my shoulder prepping to go out for servicing your cars, and I wanted you to sort of feel for what was going on. So I just wanted to thank you, Julio. I do plan on getting an EV, absolutely. So I just wanted to have you note that I can see the glare that you guys are enduring, but I'll ask your indulgence because my goal is that you get to pick up little things that are going on that you get to see while I'm talking that I can't tell you about. And then finally, I wanted to note, we do have our Patreon link below. We could really use your support. We do put ads in, and the ads help us improve our equipment and execute everything we're doing better. So we definitely appreciate you taking a moment. Maybe watch 10 or 12 seconds of the ads we put in would also be appreciated. So what happened is I did a show yesterday. We covered a few things that I thought were important. It's now today, which is Thursday morning. And what happened after our show is the stock price went down 20 bucks basically because Elon refused to answer questions about the profitability of Model 3. And so I felt like, hey, there's some things I want to say there, investigate in terms of Elon's process, but I couldn't do it in the last show, didn't want to wait until Sunday, so I wanted to jump into it. But anytime I'm near the service facility, I like to do a travel through here to see what we're seeing, be it service people or Model 3s or anything else that's going on that's new and interesting. And from what I can tell, half the cars I'm seeing here are Model 3s being delivered to customers. One of the things I wanted to cover at this point is to just focus on the fact that I just finished maybe a 15-minute casual interview with a couple of the service people that are on the vehicles you see behind me. I didn't know this, but Tesla has 3 levels of vehicles that they provide street service on all their vehicles with. That's the level 1, 2, and 3. The vehicles you see behind me, and I'll pull the camera here so you can see it. So this is called a level 1 vehicle. These are the small Ford trucks you see behind me. The difference between each of the 1, 2, and 3 level is the size of the vehicle and the amount of things that they can carry on the truck, and therefore do repairs at your home or office. We were just so I just wanted to cover 4 or 5 points that were shared to me by the gentlemen that were part of the repair team. The first item is that they're about to come out with Model S repair vehicles. And I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. Why don't you do a Model X, because you can carry more? And what he explained was that the Falcon Wind doors, when you're inside parking garages in Washington, D.C., don't allow you to open the doors, and therefore that doesn't work as a service vehicle. And so therefore you're going to see Model S's that have the ability to roll in I'm seeing comments going by, and I'm trying to read your comments so I can blend at the end answers to your questions. So FYI, that's what's going on right now, and I can't answer you immediately because it messes up the flow. So what I wanted to highlight is that you'll see Model S repair vehicles for the reason I just described. I was surprised to hear that. They are able to deploy vehicles depending on the circumstance. Another question that was answered that I thought was interesting is we've been discussing whether or not you should make an effort to carry a spare tire in your garage in case you need repair. What he explained to me was that Tesla has a relationship with certain vendors, and those vendors are able to provide even Tesla tires on the road, and then they'll give you a temporary Tesla tire, take the one that they had, have it fixed, and they'll come to your home and office and replace the damaged tire or rim for you at your destination, limiting your need to come to their service facilities to get that work done. Another item that came up is I asked him about the fact that the Model 3 is a cheaper vehicle, so theoretically you wouldn't be able to come to the service facility. He's like, that's not the case. All the vehicles are serviced at the service facilities. All the vehicles sold by Tesla are serviced by the vehicles like the vans you see behind me. It may be size of vehicle that comes to you based on the nature of the work that needs to be done. I asked him about servicing issues relative to the Model 3 population that's currently here in the Washington, D.C. area. He explained to me that Model 3 is seeing very little repair that need to be done, but in general things break, so there are things that they're fixing as they move around. I thought it was kind of cool that, they're very nice and were willing to talk about kind of what's going on. I know that they're not allowed to talk on camera, hence it's not an interview. It's sort of this is what they said as I posed questions, and I actually thought that it was new information there. It is news to me that Tesla is now giving roadside assistance that's non-Tesla vehicles, certain Tesla items like tires, etc., that they can put on your car if you need work in that space. So I thought that was, news that I didn't know about, and it was nice to talk to these guys, because usually I hit the facility on closed, on the weekends when I'm headed to church or something like that, because I go to church nearby, and so it's kind of cool. My biggest surprise for being here today is, from what I can see, I'm going to pull the camera one more time for this, my last comment here. So if you look out of here, you'll notice that there are 2 Model 3s sitting right next to each other that are being prepared for delivery for customers. Another new phenomenon that I'm seeing is, from what I can tell, maybe 40% of the vehicles that are sitting out here are all Model 3s now, not in front of the facility, because we still have our Model X's and S's. And I've shown you that before, and I was trying to come up with a new thing to show you, because if you go to a service center by driving around, you get a chance to see what's going on in general at the service center, and interesting and new things that might be happening there that sort of portend what's going on. And you know, I thought that learning about the different levels of the vans that they sent out was kind of interesting, and you know, what they do and don't carry and can do on each of the vans was also interesting. I'm a little bit surprised at someone wanting to use a Model S to do servicing on vehicles. It is happening now, you're going to see them, but I'm a little bit surprised by that, because I mean, I just think, what can you carry in that thing versus a minivan of some sort? And so this is new and news to me, and now news to you, and I think it's kind of interesting. I'm finishing up on this portion, but feel free to ask questions if you have any, and I can field those at the end. I wanted to jump into, and the main reason I was doing this talk, and I wasn't planning on doing this stuff, is Elon Musk and what I call the 51% rule. Now, what is this? Well, if you add up the numbers, if you take the Tesla well, Elon Musk has about 30% of the stock of the company. Additionally, Elon Musk's management team and board members are carrying, call it between 5 and 7% of the stock of the company. So we're closing on about 40% of the stock, about the 40% of the stock of Tesla is controlled by insiders. So what does that mean? That means that all Elon Musk has to do is get 11% of the other shareholders of Tesla's stock to vote with him on anything he wants to do. So one of the subtexts of how Tesla works and how Elon works is the fact that he has 51% vote, or all it is 50.01% of votes to do what he wants, and everybody else has to shut up. So at this point, I just thought it was fascinating, because there are a lot of CEOs out there who are being forced to stay on a very quarterly management plan, and pretty much the question that popped up was, what is profitability going to be on the Model 3, and how do those numbers work relative to when the Model 3 will be profitable for the company, and how do all those numbers work? And his response was, that's boring. And then he proceeded to answer questions from a 25-year-old blogger, rather than stay in the blizzard of questions that the analysts wanted to ask. And so the subtext of this whole thing is that right now Tesla knows what it has to accomplish, which is those 5,000 units per month by June. Now, if they don't achieve that, there's problems. If they do achieve it, there's no problems. So it's legitimate to ask about what profitability is going to be like, et cetera, totally on point, agreed. But the reality is that there's a lot of profitability in everything else that takes care of itself as you get to that threshold. So I agree with the analysts. They do have a right to ask, and the public does have a right to know, because they're investing in the stock. I also agree with Tesla and Elon, which is you're trying to both build an environment and build a company within that environment. And there are very precise numbers that you may not be able to provide on every little detail of profitability, et cetera, that everyone wants to know. But what if you accomplish a certain task, and that task takes care of all these other question marks that are lurking? One of the issues in my mind that really lurks in this space is that there's a certain number. So if Elon wasn't using the 2170 battery in the power packs, one would think that in general you'd have to produce 100,000 cars before you get to break even on the battery production. So there are all these numbers that are flying around about how many battery packs do you need to produce to get to scale on the battery packs, and now you have profitability on that. what is that number? The suggestion is that on cars, you need 100,000 units sold before you get beyond break even. So you had to build the factory, you had to design the car, you had to build a supply chain. There are all these things you had to do, and there's a certain amount of throughput that you have to get before you get to profitability. This is a question that's being asked of everybody. The analysts want to know it. They want the answer from Elon, how and if and does it work. I'm noticing the Model 3s pulling out as they're going by us because they're prepping them for customer deliveries, and you can see them over my shoulder as they're going by. So the answer is that companies that you're building for the long term, they take a lot of work, and they may not lend themselves to analyst inquiries on very short-term targets. So the problem or question mark that comes up is, how do you deal with that? Well, I guess that's an S, so I won't show you that one. I was trying to pick up colors that were being chosen by customers, etc., over my shoulder, but it's not kind of working. That is an S that just went by. So I just wanted to review what I want to call the 51% rule. And the answer is, don't be surprised if Elon Musk knows what the target is he has to hit. He's working hard to get to that target. But because there's so many investors, because of how much cash he controls, he doesn't have to answer stuff if he doesn't feel like it, and he doesn't get fired, number one. But number two, another thing you'll notice about the stock price is that there's a group of investors called hot money or hedge funds, and they're jumping in and out of the stock, trading, etc. And that group is the final sort of 10% of the stock in terms of speed of how they move. The rest of those large institutional investors are patient long-term holders. So I think it's interesting to watch how Elon has really set himself up to address what the patient long-term holders want to talk about and hear, and he's not really being helpful with the short-term, let me pop in, pop out guys, and it's creating a very interesting situation. Part of the interesting situation it introduces is the possibility that Elon Musk's whole system doesn't work, and so that's a reason why people might choose to sell the stock, because they perceive the whole thing as being a house of cards that's about to collapse. But I think the reality is that there's a whole bunch of decisions to make, a whole bunch of work to be done, and if the thing succeeds, everybody wants to claim that they knew it all along, blah, blah, blah. But if it fails, everybody runs for the hills and blames him, and he's willing to live with those possibilities. The final sort of note I want to make on all this is I finally, I think, understand Elon about comments he's been making over the last few months. And what that is that from what I calculated, if you go back to the end of August of last year, Elon Musk promised cars would be rolling out at scale by December or January of 2018. One of the phenomenons I couldn't believe was there are actually buildings that had not been built and equipped with equipment yet. And he is telling us when those buildings are going to start to produce. And I couldn't believe he was doing it. We did a show on it. And the reason I can't believe that is that when you build a building, especially on land like around the Fremont plant, there's a good possibility once that heavy structure goes up, you didn't anticipate that it was going to sink a certain amount. So what happens when you have all this equipment that depends on very precision movements, and let's say the building starts sinking? What do you do? So my point here being that there are all these decisions that had to be made beyond just building the building. It's getting the equipment in there, getting it calibrated, etc., etc. And I just think it's straight up insanity to predict when that sucker is going to start producing, which he did, and it's working. So one of the arguments he's kind of making tongue-in-cheek, and he hasn't said, is that getting this factory built and actually working was a miracle. Me getting from 2,000 to 5,000 vehicles produced on a weekly basis, that's way easier than what we've already accomplished. So I have to say that based on what I just described to you, I think it's a no-brainer that we'll get to 5,000. what I'm eyeing right now is I think by September we'll be in the 7,000, maybe 8,000 units per week zone is a real possibility. And are we getting there cleanly, linearly? Nope. But we're getting there, and getting to that destination is way easier than what it took to get to where we are now in terms of the vehicle's production. So, you know, any rate, look forward to any and all of your comments of what you guys might have to say. I don't have a whole bunch more today because the subject matter sort of changed based on having access to Tesla employees to give us a feel for what's going on in the service sector. What I'm going to do to close out our talk for today is jump out of the car, and I'm just going to give you guys more footage of what's going on behind the factory for the inbound Model 3s that are arriving by truck, and you know, some more video of the level 1 service vehicles that you'll see on the road, and then close it out from there. And I'll look forward to answering any and all of your questions. Greetings for my friends in Sweden, and Julio down in North Carolina. Thanks for the comments about what's going on at the service center there. Would love to see pictures. If you guys end up at those service centers, be happy to include it. And I'm going to do some walking around and then do my closeout here. Wow. Yep. All right. Good deal. Thank you very much for taking time out. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Once again, could really use your help on Patreon if possible. Please take time to watch an ad or two, and would appreciate your support in both manners. Please like and subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. Adios, Spanish. Max gut, tschüss, German. Lahit rot, Hebrew. I'm forgetting my Khoda Hafez, Farsi. And have a great day. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday. If you're one of our Patreon subscribers, we'll be in touch with you. We're doing our show on Saturday for you guys. Hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks for taking time out for now.